In the waning light of an autumn evening, as the western sky burned crimson above the dust-laden plains, Reverend Luke Marrow rode into the frontier town of Dry Creek. He cut a striking figure. For a minister broad of shoulder, weather-worn, with a revolver at his hip, and a well-used Bible bound to the saddle horn. Men had whispered that he bore the look of one acquainted with both salvation and sin. Near his horse crouched a wiry youth, Jesse Cole, no more than 19 summers, though hardship had chiseled sharp lines into his young face. The boy was rifling through the preacher's saddlebags when Luke stepped into view. Startled, Jesse spun about and leveled a pistol at him. Luke did not stir. "You're fixin' to make a grave mistake, son," he said, voice steady as an oak in a windstorm. Jesse hesitated only a moment before declaring his name and allegiance. He rode with Cade Brannigan, the most feared outlaw in 3 territories. Something old and sorrowful flickered across the preacher's eyes. "I rode with Brannigan once," Luke said. "Before the Lord pulled me out of the mire I'd sunk in. He warned the boy that Cade used men like kindling, burning them bright, then casting aside the ashes." Jesse scoffed, unwilling to believe a preacher could know anything of outlaw life. Yet Luke spoke with the quiet authority of one who had walked dark roads and survived them. Jesse left town with anger in his chest, and Luke's words gnawing at him. By nightfall, he had delivered every detail to Cade Brannigan himself. The raid on Dry Creek. At the stroke of midnight, Cade's riders thundered into Dry Creek. Gunfire shattered the calm. Windows burst. The livery roared with flames. Dust and smoke swirled through the lantern-lit streets. Jesse rode among them, shouting with the others. But when he glimpsed a stable boy, no older than his long-lost brother, pinned behind a fallen beam, something shifted within him. He fired, knocking the flaming timber aside and freeing the child. Cade saw and said nothing. Nothing at all. But his silence was colder than frost on a grave. Later, beneath the pale cast of the moon, Cade beckoned Jesse to walk with him into a narrow stretch of canyon. The gang knew well what such a walk signified. "You hesitated," Cade said at last. "A man who hesitates is already dead." Before Jesse could draw breath, Cade reached for his gun. Jesse dodged and fled into the rocks, bullets sparking along the stone beside him. He ran until his legs failed him, until his lungs felt carved from fire, until the only place left to run was the one place he feared most: Dry Creek. A preacher's mercy. Dawn broke soft and gray when Jesse staggered into the ravaged town. Smoke drifted from blackened beams. Doors were barred. The streets lay quiet as a graveyard, except for one man. Reverend Luke Marrow stood before his little church, coat stirring faintly in the morning breeze. "Looks like the canyon near swallowed you whole," he murmured. Jesse collapsed before him, gasping out the truth. Cade was coming, and the gang would burn Dry Creek to ashes unless the town surrendered him. Luke studied him with a grave, searching gaze. "You wronged me," he said, "but I saw you save that lad last night. That tells me your soul ain't past reach." With those words, he turned and roused the town. Rifles were fetched, barrels rolled into position. Men and women alike took up what arms they could. Jesse, who had once brought fear to Dry Creek, now stood trembling beside its defenders. Cade Brannigan and his riders appeared on the horizon with the rising Sunday. They thundered into town, dust billowing behind them like a storm. "Hand over the boy," Cade called, "and perhaps I'll leave the rest of you standing." Reverend Luke stepped into the center of the street, feet planted firm. "You'll not have him," he said. "Not while I draw breath." Gunfire erupted. Lead tore through the air. Smoke filled the narrow street like a shroud. Jesse fired beside the townsfolk, aiming to wound rather than kill a foreign feeling that nonetheless steadied his hands. Cade spotted him and charged, pistols blazing. In the space of a heartbeat, Luke moved. He stepped between Jesse and death. The bullet struck the preacher and dropped him to the dirt. Something inside Jesse tore open. He raised his gun and fired. His shot struck Cade's hand, sending the outlaw's pistol spinning into the dust. Cade pitched from his saddle, and his gang, seeing their leader fall, broke and fled for the open plains. The Battle of Dry Creek was over. A soul redeemed. Jesse knelt beside the wounded preacher, tears cutting through the grime on his cheeks. "You ought not have done that for me," he whispered, voice shaking. Luke's hand found his wrist, grip surprisingly strong despite the wound. "This is grace," he breathed. "The Lord stepped into the path of my bullets once. I reckon I can do the same for you." Jesse confessed. He knew not how to pray. Luke managed a faint smile, then pray honest. And so, in the dusty street of a half-ruined frontier town, Jesse Cole offered the first true prayer of his life. "Lord, I don't want to be this man no more. If you can forgive me, then take me. I'm yours." Luke whispered, "Amen," before he was carried away to be tended. The preacher lived, though the scar remained as a testimony. Cade Brannigan vanished from the territory, broken in body and spirit. Dry Creek rebuilt, plank by plank, hope by hope. And Jesse Cole? He laid aside his outlaw ways, worked honest labor, won back trust, married, raised a family, and walked the rest of his days as a man grateful to have been spared the noose and hell beyond it. For folks would often say, a preacher stepped into the line of fire that day, but it was God Himself who stepped into the heart of a young outlaw. If you have enjoyed this story, hit the like button and the notification bell so that you won't miss the faith within